Take a deep breath in. As you breathe in a resourceful feeling of relaxation. And as you exhale, just get a sense that tension is leaving your body in your outward breath. As you breathe in that resourceful feeling of relaxation, notice that as you exhale with your eyes closed, you're able to release even more of that tension. And tension sometimes is subtle. It could be the feeling of holding an expression that you don't need in your forehead. It could be tension in your jaw where your teeth or lips are connecting and they don't need to. It could be holding an arm or a leg in a position where to move it slightly would create more feelings of comfort and relaxation. As you breathe in and breathe out, just get a sense that you're scanning your body for any feelings of tension. Tension could even be a tightness in the chest. And as you breathe in and breathe out, just release that tension. Tension could be a feeling in your neck, a tightness, and just feel that is melting away like ice cubes in the sunshine, enabling you to go deeper and deeper relaxed. I want you to use the power of your imagination to imagine wilderness. Imagine a time where there was no electricity, no buildings, no homes. I want you to imagine a time where light and heat came from a homemade fire. I want you to imagine it's approaching sunset. And I want you to imagine that there is someone that you care for, that you're building a fire with. Maybe that's collecting the sticks, branches, dry leaves. You've already made the decision that this person is someone worthy to create this fire with. Maybe you've met them on several occasions, you've had lots of conversations, that chemistry is there. You feel good in their presence. They're easy to communicate with. And you've decided that this is someone that is worthy of investing your time and your effort to build something with. And right now you're building a fire. It's not dark yet. And I want you to imagine just before the sun sets, whether it's through friction of sticks or the spark of some flint, imagine that fire catches light. A tiny spark just to begin with connects perhaps with a dry leaf, and then starts to glow, starts to create a flame. And I want you to get a sense that this is now, as the sun sets and you're surrounded perhaps by trees or countryside, a night sky above you, just imagine there is a fire. And I want you to imagine that both you and this other person have a bucket of water. Each of you have the ability to extinguish this fire. In fact, there are holes in this bucket. So just by getting too close to the fire, there is the danger of accidentally extinguishing this fire. And therefore you agree that it's useful to have some clues as to not get too close to the fire. I want you to imagine that a certain distance around the fire, there is a circle all the way round, perhaps made with vine or some kind of rope, and the colour of this is red. And And the agreement is between the two of you that if you accidentally or intentionally cross the red line, well, then the fire will be extinguished and put out. And the agreement is that each of you would have to find someone else to build a new fire with. But neither of you want that. You're happy with the fire. You're happy with the company around the fire. You're getting the benefits of that fire, the heat, the warmth, the light. Maybe you're able to cook things. But I want you to get a sense that you're not allowed to get too close to the fire while holding the buckets. I want you to decide in your mind one area of your life that this red rope, this red line represents. Maybe it represents the way that someone communicates. Maybe it just represents trust. That at the point that this red line is crossed, you don't trust them anymore, in which case the fire is extinguished and you move on to another fire. Maybe it's the way in which you collaborate and get on together. The level to which you can work together in partnership and have that flexibility, find the compromises. Maybe it's a certain level of disrespect represents going over that red line. And in your mind, I want you to accept that if the red line is crossed, then you will voluntarily tip your bucket of water on that fire and just walk away. Because if you've both agreed not to cross these red lines, then if either of you does, it's fair for the other person to extinguish the fire and just move on. But neither of you wants that to happen. And then imagine further away from this red rope, you decide that because you don't want to accidentally cross this red line, it makes sense to have another boundary further away from that red line. And I want you to imagine maybe a dark vine or a dark rope further away from the perimeter of the fire. And that creates an even wider circle. And the agreement is that if this black line gets crossed, it's not a reason to extinguish the flames, to put out the fire, but it's essential that some kind of communication takes place to find out why that line was crossed. Was it intentional or accidental? And what can be done to avoid this line being crossed, either intentionally or accidentally at some point in the future? The communication is necessary to decide if this line is in the right place or if it needs to be moved closer to the red line or even further out from the red line. And I want you to think of an area of your life where it would represent not a reason to extinguish the flames, but a reason to have a really sincere, meaningful conversation about what led to that line being crossed. And I want you to see, as the sunrise now appears with the flames still going, that in this wilderness there is so much space that is nowhere near these lines. The lines are but a tiny part of what is going on. The lines are there to protect the valuable fire. It's to keep the flames going. But the goal is not to get dangerously close to any of these lines. The goal is to make the most of all this space you have far away from the lines. I want you to imagine that you're nowhere near the lines and you're just having incredible connection, amazing experiences, moments, memories with this person. Nowhere near the lines. Then I want you to imagine that something happens where this person accidentally crosses the black line. Although your instinct might be to accuse them of deliberately crossing the black line, it's more than plausible that they were having so much fun, appreciating the fire, that they just didn't realize that they crossed that black line. I want your instant emotion not to be critical of them crossing the line, accusatory of them crossing the line, or even feeling like a victim because they've crossed the line, but more that you're curious. What were they thinking about? Where was their attention? What led to them crossing this line? The clues will be in their tonality, their expressions. Your intuition, I want you to imagine as a glowing aura, will give you an idea of when you have these conversations. If the aura glows and gets stronger, then that gives you a sense of reassurance. And if it starts to feel like it's being affected, then maybe you're not getting the assurances that you need. But I want you to operate not from the position of interrogation, of trying to change their behavior, but more to understand their behavior, to find out what their intention was. What emotion are they feeling? What could be done to avoid something like this happening? Because otherwise, this precious fire is at risk. And it doesn't make sense to accidentally destroy something so valuable if both you and they really want to keep this fire alive. I want you to accept the suggestion that if a line is crossed, it's not a requirement that you immediately get the answers to those questions as to why that line was crossed. A day or two, even 3 is fine. Because normally at the point where the line is crossed is the worst possible time to discuss that line being crossed. The opportune time is when that other person is in a loving, kind, understanding state of mind, and your intuition knows when that's the case. But if a red line is crossed, I want you to have absolutely no hesitation in putting out that fire and walking away. In fact, I want you to imagine it happening, that you see this other person intentionally crossing that red line, knowing it's a red line for you, and being defiant, not caring that that line has been crossed. And then imagine that you're picking up a bucket, walking over to the fire and putting out that fire, and deciding that this is not the right person to build a fire with. And the quicker you put out that fire, the more time you have to find someone else that you can really build the right fire with. I want you to get a sense that your job isn't to control, it's to lead and to respond. You have an intention as to the kind of fire that you're building, but if it ever becomes evident that that fire is not possible, the lines are being crossed, then one of your lines is that you don't want to have a fire with someone that isn't also contributing to that fire, isn't also protecting those boundaries. I want you to get a sense that building a fire is a partnership. And therefore, the clearer you are on that fire, on the red line and the black lines, the easier it is to choose the right kind of person to build that fire with. I want your unconscious mind to naturally, intuitively go back and think, what are the appropriate lines to protect that fire? What times in the past should I have just extinguished the fire straight away and walked away? And how would I need to communicate when a line is crossed to not be at risk of crossing someone else's line? Now it's time to leave this place. I want you to leave this playing knowing that you've got the opportunity to build a fire with the right person that's right for you, to set those lines in exactly the right place so that they're not too strict and they're not too lenient. They're the right balance to protect what's valuable, but not confine what's valuable. As you realize that all of this are just thoughts within thoughts, ideas within ideas, dreams within dreams, and actually you're now in the present, listening to my voice. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Just wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, get a sense that you're in your own physical body with all parts fully integrated into this moment right now, as I now count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. You will awaken feeling positive, with more clarity, knowing that the clearer you are on those lines, the easier it is to build a fire that can grow big and valuable, that is worth protecting and keeping. Starting to count to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.